You've done this before. You sit down, maybe at your desk, maybe on the couch, maybe on a Sunday night when the week feels full of possibility, and you write the list. Wake up at 6 a.m. Exercise every morning. Eat better. Read instead of scrolling. Meditate. It's a good list. An honest list. And some version of it has been living in your head, or your notes app, or your journal for months. Maybe years. The problem isn't the list. You know what's on the list. You believe in what's on the list. You've seen what happens to people who actually live the list, and you want that. So why doesn't it stick? That's the question this video is going to answer. Not with another productivity system. Not with a better morning routine. With a diagnosis, because the reason your habits don't stick isn't what most self-improvement content tells you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's what most self-improvement gets wrong. It treats behavior as the problem. You're not exercising enough, so the solution must be to exercise more. You're reaching for your phone too much, so the answer must be to reach for it less. It sounds logical. Change the behavior, change the life. But there's a layer underneath behavior that barely anyone talks about. Think about what actually goes through your mind when you try a new habit. You sit down to meditate, and some part of you is thinking, I'm not really a meditation person. You lace up the running shoes and in the back of your head, I've never been athletic. You put down your phone to read, and the thought creeps in. I always lose focus. I never follow through with these things. That's not weakness. That's not laziness. That's your identity doing exactly what identities are supposed to do, keeping your behavior consistent with who you believe you are. The problem isn't that you lack willpower. The problem is that willpower is being asked to fight something much bigger than itself. Every time you try to act like someone you don't actually believe you are, you feel friction. That friction wears you down. Eventually, you stop. Not because you failed, but because you are solving the wrong problem. You are trying to change the behavior without changing the believer. You can bolt new habits onto an old identity the same way you can repaint a house with a crumbling foundation. It looks different. For a while. Then the cracks come back. The habits that stick, the ones that become effortless, they don't come from more discipline. They come from somewhere deeper. And that somewhere is who you actually believe yourself to be. Here's the thing about lasting change. The kind that actually sticks. That doesn't require you to white-knuckle your way through every morning. People who make real, permanent changes in their lives almost never start with a habit. They start with a question. Who am I? Most of us approach change from one direction. We decide what we want to do differently, and we hope that eventually we'll start feeling like the kind of person who does those things. We're waiting for the identity to catch up to the behavior, and it doesn't. Not reliably, not for long. But flip that sequence and something different happens. You decide who you are first and behavior follows. Not instantly, not perfectly, but naturally. Because you're no longer fighting yourself, you're expressing yourself. Here's the exercise. Write your list 1. The habits you want, the behaviors you're trying to build, the usual list. Write it honestly. Then write list 2. List 2 asks a different question. Who would you have to be for these habits to feel completely natural? Not forced, not heroic, just obvious. The kind of thing that person simply does, because it's who they are. Look at what you wrote in list 2. That's not a goal. It's not a destination, it's a description. A description of a person who already exists or who is already starting to exist in you right now. List 1 is a wish. List 2 is a blueprint. And here's something important to understand. Your identity isn't fixed. It's not a fact about you the way your height is a fact about you. It's a story. A story you've been telling yourself for years. Built from the things that happened to you, the things people said, the attempts that worked and the ones that didn't. That story can be rewritten, not by denying what happened, but by deciding which parts you build on and what they mean about who you're becoming. The people who change their lives don't discover a new self. They author one. Now let's make this practical. Because a concept without a tool is just a good feeling that fades by Tuesday. Here's what you're going to build: 3 identity statements, not affirmations. I want to be clear about that, because this is important. Affirmations are things like I am confident and successful, or I attract abundance into my life. They're vague, they're feelings-based, and for most people they feel hollow after about 30 seconds. Identity statements are different. They're specific, they're behavioral. They describe actions, not feelings. And they're written in the present tense, not as goals, but as descriptions of who you already are in the process of being. Here's what they look like. I am someone who moves their body every day, even if it's just a 20-minute walk. That's it. Not I am an athlete. Not I work out every day. It's honest, it's specific, it's achievable, and it describes a type of person. Someone whose relationship with movement is consistent, not perfect. I am someone who doesn't reach for their phone in the first hour of the morning. Notice what this does. It's not about the phone being bad. It's not about discipline. It's a statement about the kind of morning you have and, by extension, the kind of person you are. Your mornings belong to you first. I am someone who finishes what they start before they start something new. That one's personal. Because one of the quietest ways we undermine our own identity is by leaving a trail of half-finished things behind us. Every unfinished project tells a small story about who you are. This statement starts to rewrite it. Write your 3. They don't have to be perfect, they don't have to sound impressive, they just have to be true to the person you're becoming. Keep them behavior-based. Keep them present tense. Keep them specific enough that you could actually picture what the person does on a Tuesday morning. These aren't aspirations. They're anchors. Every decision you make from here gets tested against them. And that test, that simple check, is where the real change begins. Every decision you make is a vote. Not a metaphor. A real accumulating vote for or against the person you say you are. You skip the phone in the first hour? That's a vote. You take the stairs? That's a vote. You close the laptop when you said you would? That's a vote. You drink the water instead of the third coffee? That's a vote. You sit down with a book for 10 minutes before bed? That's a vote. None of these individually changes your life. That's not the point. The point is that votes accumulate into evidence. And evidence is what builds belief. Right now, you might be trying to believe you're the kind of person who exercises, but you have no evidence. Every time you've tried before, it faded. So the belief is shaky. Of course it is. But here's what changes. When you make one vote, then another, when you put together a week of small identity-consistent decisions, you start to have something you can point to. Proof. Not proof that you've arrived. Proof that you're in motion. There's a question that makes this easier. Before a decision, especially the small ones, the ones that feel trivial, ask yourself, what would the person I'm becoming do here? Not what should I do? Not what did I say I'd do? What would that person do, the one you described in your identity statements? That question does something that willpower can't. Willpower is about resistance. It's white-knuckling your way past something you want. But this question doesn't feel like resistance. It feels like direction. You're not fighting an urge. You're checking in with who you are. And you don't need every vote to go your way. That's the part most people miss. Missing a day isn't a failure. It's one lost vote. The election isn't over. The identity isn't gone. What breaks identity change isn't missing once. It's the story you tell about missing once. See, I always give up. This isn't really me. That story is a vote too, just in the wrong direction. Catch the story. Vote again. After a week of consistent voting, something quiet but significant starts to happen. You start to recognize yourself in the choices. The person you described in list 2 starts to feel less like a stranger and more like someone you've always known. 3 weeks in, the alarm goes off, and you get up. Not because you're disciplined, not because you set a consequence for yourself or had an accountability partner texting you. You get up because, and this might sound small until it happens to you, you get up because people like you get up. That's what the shift feels like. The walk happens not because you forced yourself out the door, but because moving your body is just what you do now. It's not a challenge anymore. It's not a victory anymore. It's just Tuesday. The habit didn't get easier. The person changed. That's a line worth sitting with, because it's the whole thing. Self-improvement tells you that habits get easier with repetition, and they do up to a point. But the real shift isn't neurological, it's not about building a groove in your brain. The real shift is the moment you stop seeing the habit as something you're doing and start seeing it as something you are. That moment, from I'm trying to be someone who exercises to I exercise, it's what I do. That's the moment surface level self-improvement never reaches. It doesn't reach it because it never asked the right question. It asked, what do I need to do, when the real question was, who do I need to be? You've been asking the right question now. Keep going. Here's your one thing this week. Write the 2 lists. List 1. The habits you want. The behaviors you've been trying to build. Be honest, write what's actually on your mind, not what sounds impressive. List 2. Who you'd have to be for those habits to feel like the most natural thing in the world. Not a performance. Not a fantasy, a description. Write it in the present tense. Write it like you're describing a real person, because you are. That second list is not a wish. It's not a vision board. It's a description of someone who is already starting to exist, in the choices you make today, in the votes you cast this week, in the small decisions that nobody sees but you. Identity isn't something you discover, it's something you build. And you build it one vote at a time. You already know who you're becoming. Write it down. If this video gave you something, if any part of it landed, hit subscribe. Every single week on Travel to a Better You, we explore ideas exactly like this one. Small, practical, honest shifts in how you think, how you see yourself, and how you move through the world. I'll see you in the next one.